Have you ever felt the sting of failure so sharply it seemed to halt your world? That heavy cloak of disappointment, the echo of what if, the sense that a door has slammed shut. It's a universal human experience, this encounter with an outcome we desperately wish to avoid. We've all been there, standing amidst the ruins of a plan, wondering where to turn next. This feeling of being lost, of being defined by what went wrong, can be overwhelming. We might replay the moment, dissect our actions, or simply try to push the discomfort away. But what if there was a different path? What if the very essence of failure held a secret, a hidden passage not to more pain, but to profound understanding? Imagine being able to transform that raw, painful experience not in weeks or months, but almost overnight. This isn't about magic, but about a shift in perspective, a new way of seeing, inspired by one of history's greatest thinkers. We're talking about turning the lead of failure into the gold of wisdom. Our guide on this journey is Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher who famously declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He believed that true wisdom begins not with answers, but with questions. And it is this Socratic spirit of inquiry that can unlock the power hidden within our failures. Socrates didn't offer easy solutions. Instead, he showed us how to find our own by courageously looking inward. He understood that life's most profound lessons often come disguised as its most challenging moments. Failure in this light isn't an enemy, but a stern, yet valuable teacher. So how do we begin this transformation? How do we take the sting of a recent setback and find the wisdom within, perhaps even before another sun rises? The first step is to pause, to resist the urge to immediately react or assign blame. It's about creating a space for reflection. The overnight shift we seek begins with a conscious decision, the decision to examine, not to condemn. It's the moment you choose to look at failure not as a verdict on your worth, but as a complex puzzle waiting to be understood. This shift in intent is incredibly powerful. Socrates would urge us to ask, what truly happened here? Not just the surface event, but the underlying factors, the unspoken assumptions, the subtle currents that led to this outcome. This isn't about dwelling on the negative, but about seeking clarity with an open mind. Consider a recent failure, big or small. Instead of replaying the disappointment, ask, what was I trying to achieve? Reconnect with your original intention, your goal. This helps to detach the outcome from your inherent value, reminding you that effort and aspiration have worth, regardless of the result. The Socratic approach doesn't shy away from discomfort. It invites us to sit with the experience, to observe our emotional response without judgment. Are you feeling anger, sadness, frustration? Acknowledge these feelings as natural human responses, messengers rather than masters. Now, let's introduce the first powerful Socratic question to direct at your failure. What were my expectations, and how did reality differ? This simple inquiry can be incredibly revealing. Often, our suffering comes not just from the event itself, but from the gap between what we wanted and what is. Identifying this gap is crucial. Were your expectations realistic? Were they based on solid information or on hope alone? Socrates taught that unexamined assumptions are the breeding ground for misjudgment. This isn't about blaming yourself, but about understanding the foundation of your plan. The overnight wisdom begins to crystallize when you see failure not as a random event, but as feedback, precious feedback. It's the universe or reality telling you something important about your approach, your understanding, or the circumstances themselves. Next, Socrates might prompt you to ask, what factors were within my control and what factors were beyond it? This is a vital distinction. We often carry the burden of things we could not possibly have influenced. Separating these can lift an enormous weight. Focus on what was within your sphere of influence. Your decisions, your actions, your effort, your preparation. This is where your agency lies, and consequently, where the most valuable lessons for future endeavors can be found. Let go of blaming external forces you couldn't command. For the elements within your control, ask with genuine curiosity. Knowing what I know now, what might I have done differently? This is not about self-recrimination. It's about constructive review, like a master craftsman examining their work to refine their technique. Perhaps you needed more information, a different skill, or a change in timing. The answers to "what might I have done differently" are the seeds of future success. Each insight gained is a piece of wisdom acquired, transforming the failure into a stepping stone. Socrates emphasized honesty in self-assessment. Were there any warnings you overlooked? Any small doubts you dismissed? Again, the goal is not to punish, but to sharpen your awareness for next time, to learn to trust those inner nudges or red flags. The overnight transformation deepens as you shift from seeing failure as an identity, "I am a failure," to seeing it as an event, "I experienced a failure." Socrates knew the power of words and definitions. This distinction is liberating. You are not your setbacks. Ask, what strengths did I actually demonstrate even in this failure? Perhaps you showed courage by trying, perseverance in the face of obstacles, or creativity in your approach. Acknowledge these. Failure rarely means a total absence of merit. This balanced Socratic inquiry helps you build a more complete and compassionate narrative of the event. It's not just a story of loss, but a story of striving, learning, and discovering. This reframing is where the wisdom truly takes root, often feeling like an immediate shift. The core of Socratic wisdom regarding failure is this: every setback is an invitation to know yourself better. Know thyself was inscribed at Delphi, a principle Socrates championed. Failure strips away illusions and reveals truths about your capabilities, limits, and desires. So the next key Socratic question is, what does this failure teach me about myself? Beyond the external factors, what internal landscape has been illuminated? Perhaps it reveals a hidden fear, an untapped resilience, or a passion you didn't realize was so strong. This self-discovery is the wisdom. It's the gold refined from the ore of experience. It's not just about fixing a strategy for next time, it's about evolving as a person. This is the overnight gift, a deeper, more nuanced understanding of who you are. Consider this: without failure, how would we truly know our limits? How would we discover the edges of our comfort zone and find the courage to push beyond them? Each stumble, properly examined, helps calibrate our internal compass for growth. Socrates believed that acknowledging ignorance is the first step towards wisdom. When we fail, we are confronted with what we don't know or what we can't yet do. Embracing this, not knowing, opens us up to learning, rather than shutting us down in shame. Ask, what am I now aware of that I wasn't aware of before? This could be a subtle dynamic in relationships, a flaw in your understanding of a subject, or a societal trend you hadn't noticed. This heightened awareness is a direct fruit of examining failure. The overnight aspect isn't that all problems vanish, but that your relationship with failure changes. It ceases to be a terrifying specter and becomes a somewhat challenging, but ultimately helpful, interlocutor, a Socratic partner in your journey of growth. This new relationship is built on curiosity, not fear. Instead of "oh no, I failed again," it becomes, "okay, this happened. What questions can I ask to understand it fully?" This simple shift in internal dialogue is profoundly transformative, and it can happen in an instant. The wisdom extracted isn't just theoretical. Socrates was intensely practical. So the next question is crucial. Based on these insights, what is one small, concrete action I can take, or one adjustment I can make moving forward? This moves you from reflection to application. Wisdom isn't passive, it informs our choices and actions. The overnight shift solidifies when you commit to integrating the lesson, however small. It could be a change in routine, a difficult conversation, or further research. Imagine failure as a locked door. Brute force, anger, denial, self-blame only damages the door and the frame. Socratic questioning is like finding the right key. It might take a few tries, a few different questions, but it opens the door gently, revealing a new path. This process also cultivates humility. As Socrates famously suggested, he was wise because he knew nothing. Failure reminds us that we are always learning, always growing. This humility isn't weakness, but an openness to continuous improvement. Each time you engage with failure in this Socratic way, you are essentially training your mind. You are building a new neural pathway, one that leads to insight instead of despair. This is how resilience is forged, not by avoiding difficulty, but by navigating it wisely. The beauty of this approach is its accessibility. You don't need special tools or circumstances. You only need your mind, a willingness to be honest, and the courage to ask questions. This power is inherently within you, ready to be activated. The overnight change is the realization that you are not a victim of your failures, but a student of them. This empowers you to face future challenges not with dread, but with a sense of curious anticipation. What will this experience teach me? Socrates himself faced immense failure in his life, including being misunderstood and ultimately condemned. Yet, his commitment to questioning and truth remained steadfast. His legacy teaches us that the value of a life is not measured by its absence of setbacks. So when failure visits, try to welcome it as Socrates might have, as an opportunity for deeper understanding. Ask it, what truth have you come to reveal? This perspective transforms the encounter from a battle into a dialogue. Remember, the goal isn't to eradicate failure. That's impossible and undesirable, as it would mean an end to growth and striving. The goal is to change your response to failure, to harness its power for your own development. This is true Socratic alchemy. This practice of Socratic inquiry into failure is like exercising a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger and more natural it becomes. Soon, the overnight shift in perspective becomes your default mode of operation when facing adversity. One might ask, but what if the failure is truly catastrophic? What if the pain is too great? Even then, the Socratic path offers a sliver of light. It starts with the smallest questions, the most gentle observations, slowly building a bridge from despair to understanding. In moments of deep distress, the first Socratic act might simply be to ask, what is one thing I know for sure right now? It could be as simple as I am breathing, or I am still here. This grounds you in the present, a necessary first step before deeper examination. Then, what is one small piece of this situation I can look at without being overwhelmed? Break the immense failure down. Socrates taught by dissecting big concepts into smaller, manageable parts. The same applies to our experiences. The wisdom gained isn't just for you. As you learn to navigate failure with grace and insight, you become a quiet source of strength for others. Your transformed perspective can inspire those around you who are struggling with their own setbacks. This Socratic method does not promise to erase the pain of failure entirely. Some experiences leave scars. However, it offers a way to ensure that the pain is not meaningless, that it contributes to a richer, wiser, and more compassionate self. The overnight miracle is truly the moment of decision. The decision to stop running from failure or being crushed by it, and instead, to turn and face it with curious, courageous questions. That decision can happen right now. Think of Socrates in his cell facing death. He didn't rail against his fate. He questioned, he discussed, he sought understanding until the very end. His life demonstrates that dignity and wisdom can be found even in the ultimate failure of mortality, if examined. So the invitation today is to become a Socratic inquirer of your own life. When failure occurs, take a breath. Fetch your metaphorical magnifying glass. Remember the questions. What did I expect? What was in my control? What can I learn about myself? This process isn't about finding someone or something to blame. Blame is a dead end. It offers no growth. Socratic inquiry is about understanding causality, responsibility, ability to respond, and ultimately opportunity. the opportunity to learn and adapt. Each failure, examined Socratically, adds a unique thread to the tapestry of your wisdom. Over time, these threads weave together to create a rich, resilient, and deeply personal understanding of life, yourself, and your path. The overnight part is the immediate relief and empowerment that comes from knowing you have a method, a tool to deal with what once seemed insurmountable. It's the shift from feeling helpless to feeling resourceful. This internal shift is profound. Don't aim for perfection in this Socratic process. Some days your inquiry will be deeper, other days more superficial. The key is the consistent intention to question and learn. Every small insight chips away at the monolithic nature of failure. This approach also cultivates patience. Wisdom isn't usually a sudden lightning bolt, but a slow dawn. The overnight shift is the beginning of that dawn, the first ray of light that changes everything by showing a path out of darkness. Consider how differently children learn. They fall, they try again, they ask, why, endlessly. They are natural Socratic learners. We can recapture that innate curiosity, that willingness to explore even when we don't get it right the first time. The more you practice this, the less fear failure will hold over you. If you know you can extract wisdom from any outcome, the risk of trying new things, of stretching yourself, becomes far less daunting. Failure becomes a calculated part of the journey. Socrates didn't write anything down. His wisdom comes to us through his students, like Plato. This reminds us that the wisdom we glean from our failures can also be passed on, not just through words, but through our example of how we handle adversity. So the Socratic method is not just a technique, it's a way of life, a commitment to continuous learning, self-reflection, and the courageous pursuit of truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. This is the bedrock of turning any failure into wisdom. The overnight change isn't about suddenly knowing all the answers. It's about falling in love with the questions. It's about realizing that the quality of your questions determines the quality of your insights, and ultimately, the quality of your life. This journey from failure to wisdom is deeply personal. Your questions, your insights, your path will be unique to you. Socrates provided the framework, the spirit of inquiry, but you are the philosopher of your own life, interpreting its lessons. Let the next failure you encounter, no matter how small, be your Socratic playground. Instead of frustration, feel a flicker of curiosity. Ah, you might think, an opportunity to practice, to learn something new about myself and the world. The wisdom you cultivate is not just abstract knowledge, it's practical, embodied understanding. It changes how you show up in the world, more resilient, more compassionate, more discerning, and ultimately, more at peace with the unfolding of life. This Socratic engagement with failure fosters deep self-trust. When you know you can handle setbacks by transforming them, you trust yourself more to navigate uncertainty. This trust is a profound source of inner strength and calm. The overnight wisdom isn't a one-time fix, but the adoption of an ongoing process. Like tending a garden, it requires consistent attention, weeding out unhelpful thoughts, planting seeds of inquiry, and patiently nurturing the growth of understanding. This Socratic path helps dissolve the ego's attachment to success and its fear of failure. When learning becomes the primary goal, both success and failure become valuable data points on the journey, rather than verdicts on our worth. Remember Socrates' gadfly analogy. He saw himself as a gadfly, stinging the Athenian state into self-reflection. Let your failures be your personal gadflies, prompting you to examine your assumptions and awaken to deeper truths. The alternative to this Socratic engagement is to let failures accumulate as regrets, burdens, or justifications for not trying. This Socratic path offers liberation from that cycle, turning potential weight into wings. Each time you successfully turn a failure into a lesson, you are rewriting your personal history, not by changing the facts, but by changing their meaning and their impact on your future. This is true empowerment. The overnight aspect truly shines when you realize that this power to reframe and learn was always within you. Socrates didn't invent it. He merely articulated and embodied a timeless human capacity for wisdom through reflection. So carry these Socratic questions with you. What can I learn? What was in my control? How can I grow from this? Let them be your companions through life's inevitable ups and downs. They are keys to unlocking constant growth. This path of turning failure into wisdom is not about becoming invincible or emotionless. It's about becoming more fully human, capable of feeling deeply, yet also capable of thinking clearly and learning resiliently from all of life's experiences. The greatest gift of this Socratic approach is perhaps the peace of mind it cultivates. Knowing that even in failure, there is an opportunity for wisdom alleviates much of the anxiety associated with striving and risk-taking. So the next time you face a setback, remember Socrates. Remember the power of the question. Remember that within that uncomfortable experience lies a seed of wisdom, waiting for your attention to help it bloom, perhaps even overnight. This is not just a mental exercise. It is a practice of the heart. It requires courage to face our shortcomings, compassion for ourselves in the process, and an unwavering curiosity about the nature of life and our own unfolding within it. Embracing this Socratic path means you are never truly defeated by failure, because every outcome becomes fuel for your journey towards greater understanding and self-awareness. Failure, then, is simply another word for lesson pending. The transformation is overnight because the moment you decide to ask, "What can this teach me?" instead of "Why me?" the entire dynamic shifts. You move from victim to active learner. This shift is immediate and profoundly changes your experience. As you walk this path, you'll find that failure loses its sharp edges. It becomes less of a judgment and more of an indicator, like a compass guiding you towards a more authentic and skillful way of living. The true wisdom Socrates pointed towards was not a destination, but a way of traveling. It's about the quality of attention and inquiry you bring to each moment, especially the challenging ones. This is where lasting transformation occurs. So the invitation is clear. Embrace your failures as your teachers. Question them with Socratic rigor and kindness. In doing so, you unlock not just solutions to problems, but deeper truths about yourself and the art of living wisely. The overnight wisdom is the enduring understanding that no experience is wasted if you are willing to learn from it. This perspective is a gift you give yourself, a key to lifelong growth and resilience. May you find the courage to question, the humility to learn, and the wisdom to transform every experience into a stepping stone on your unique path. The Socratic way is open to all who seek it. The core message, distilled from Socrates, is that failure's sting can be instantly soothed, and its lessons unlocked when we meet it not with fear, but with courageous, honest questioning. This is the overnight alchemy available to us all. This path of Socratic inquiry doesn't promise a life free of challenges, but it offers a way to meet those challenges with grace, to extract their hidden value, and to continually refine the masterpiece that is your life. Remember, the most profound shifts often begin with the simplest of questions. The moment you ask, "What can I learn from this?" is the moment wisdom begins to dawn, dispelling the darkness of despair, often feeling like an overnight transformation. So go forth not in fear of failure, but with the tools of Socrates in hand, your innate curiosity, your capacity for honest reflection, and your desire to grow. This is how you turn any setback into wisdom, starting today. The unexamined failure, much like the unexamined life, may not be worth living if we seek growth. But the failure examined with Socratic eyes, that becomes a gateway to a richer, wiser, and more resilient self, almost instantly. The overnight change isn't about the failure disappearing, but about your perception of it being utterly transformed. It moves from a full stop to a comma, a pause for reflection before the story continues, enriched by new understanding. Carry this Socratic spark with you. Let it illuminate your path through challenges, turning every stumble into a lesson, every ending into a new beginning, and every failure into a stepping stone towards profound, personal wisdom. The wisdom of Socrates reminds us that the greatest power lies not in avoiding life's difficulties, but in our capacity to learn and grow from them. This is the key to turning failure into wisdom, not in a lifetime, but in the decisive moment of conscious inquiry. So, what failure will you choose to illuminate with your Socratic inquiry today? What wisdom waits to be uncovered, transforming your perspective, perhaps even overnight? The journey begins with a single, courageous question. Thank you for joining this exploration. May you find strength in inquiry and wisdom in all your experiences. The unexamined life is not worth living, but the examined failure is a source of endless growth.